Kia ora class. Today we're going to talk about equipment as a possible influence on people's participation in physical activity. Today's learning intention is we are exploring how and why equipment might affect people's participation in physical activity. What is equipment? Pretty straightforward. Equipment includes all the tools, implements and structures used to do a physical activity or sport. And I want to point out that they are often just as important as the rules for distinguishing one activity or sport from another one. Got some examples here. Tennis and badminton. One of the main differences between those two sports is the equipment. The rules are pretty similar, but the equipment is what makes them unique. Another example, American football versus rugby. If you look at the equipment the players have access to, the padding and the protection they wear, those are quite different, even though the sports are kind of similar. Golf versus frisbee golf. Pretty much the exact same sport, but you couldn't expect a golf player to go and be an awesome ultimate frisbee golf player because the equipment is so different. And lastly, I've got swimming versus scuba diving. Obviously, both involve moving through the water efficiently, but they're quite different sports or physical activities. Equipment often adds something to the game. It creates flavor and interest. And one of the best examples I can think of is one we use in PE a lot, which are the fat mats, right? So we can start out sort of playing any sport in a lesson or a unit, and if people start to get a little bit bored, a little bit disinterested, I've found that if you chuck in some fat mats, immediately that brings people back in. It's a new bit of equipment. It's something fun that everyone loves to do. And by adding that equipment in, it just creates a whole nother dimension to the game. However, conversely, it could also put people off playing, or it could be a total barrier to people's participation. Somehow equipment is stopping them from participating at all. So, why does equipment affect participation? Here are some prompting questions that you can ask yourself and think of if you think equipment may have affected your participation in a given activity. Was the equipment in good condition, or was it a bit crappy? Was the equipment able to be shared by everyone? Was there enough of it for everyone to participate? Was the equipment interesting? Was it interesting, or was it that same old tennis ball? And was it easy enough to use? Often equipment, when you incorporate it into a sport, it requires a certain amount of skill to use. And if you don't have those fundamental skills, it's going to be very, very hard for you to participate fully in that activity if you can't use the basic implement for it. If you can't swing a bat, it's going to be very, very hard for you to play softball. You'll be able to do some of it, but your participation won't be as good. All right, so lastly, we're going to look at how equipment affects people's participation in physical activity, and we're going to do it using those same sort of sentence starters that we've used in previous videos. Equipment had a positive effect on my participation. I've decided that the effect was good, it was positive. The equipment enabled me to, here's some ideas, participate with more skill, contribute more to the team or game, do things I otherwise couldn't have done without that equipment, compete with other people more fairly or better, or try something new and different during this particular activity. Go to the flip side, equipment had a negative effect on my participation today. The equipment made it difficult to play skillfully, made it hard to contribute to the team or game, made it harder to do things that I otherwise probably could have done, made it difficult to compete with other people, or made it so that I didn't actually want to try anything new today with this particular activity. So there's a few different ideas about how equipment might affect your participation in any sort of physical activity that we do, and that's how and why those changes could happen. So hopefully you can use this now in your logs.